in a major breakthrough that has ended in a stalemate in talks between Ladakhi groups and Home Ministry, the Kargil Democratic Alliance, the KDA, and the Leh Apex Body, the LAB, have agreed in principle to constitutional safeguards on the lines of Article 371, as well as the creation of a union territory level legislative body. Now, the delegation included climate activist Sonam Wangchuk, who was released from detention under the National Security Act on the 14th of March earlier this year. After the meeting, Wangchuk said that significant progress was made in talks with the government. He also added that in due course, Ladakh will be accorded full statehood when it has enough revenue of its own to support the operational expenses of salaries, pensions, etc. The Union Ministry of Home Affairs has proposed a new mechanism to grant Ladakh greater legislative, financial, and administrative powers within the existing Union Territory framework. According to civil society members who attended a subcommittee meeting with the MHA officials on Friday. Now, representatives from the delegation said that the MHA authorities had said the only reason why Ladakh could not be made a state at the moment was that it currently lacked adequate revenue generation to meet the expenditure such as salaries of employees. Under Article 371 and 371A through J provide special provisions and protections for specific states, giving them autonomy over their affairs without interference from the state and central governments. The states include Nagaland, Mizoram, and Sikkim. And the MHA is likely to soon end a draft mentioning the proposed changes, which they were told would be under the framework of union territory and legislative powers.
कल शाम को गृह मंत्रालय में एक संवाद एक वार्ता हुई जिसमें लद्दाख से कारगिल डेमोक्रेटिक अलायंस केडीए और ले एपेक्स बॉडी के सदस्य आए थे। ये सब कमेटी स्तर का वार्ता थी जिसमें कि जो मुद्दे हैं छोटे उन पे बात करेंगे। बाद में इस पे हाई पावर्ड कमेटी की भी बैठक बैठेगी। तो इसमें कुछ नई पहल और कुछ कदम नए बढ़ाए गए। आप लोगों को मालूम होगा कि लद्दाख हमेशा से संविधान के अनुसूची 6वें अनुसूची में संरक्षण और फिर लोकतंत्र की बहाली यानी कि स्टेटहुड की मांग करते आए हैं। तो स्टेटहुड और 6 शेड्यूल के बारे में सरकार का ये पक्ष था कि 6 शेड्यूल को हम नहीं दे पा रहे हैं मगर आपको 371 जो संविधान का है उसमें दे सकते हैं। ये उन्होंने पहले प्रस्ताव रखा था मगर हमारी ये समस्या थी कि 371 बिना किसी विधानसभा के जहाँ पर लॉ मेकिंग बॉडी असेंबली हो उसके माने नहीं रखता है। और उनका अभी तक मत था कि 371 एक काउंसिल लेवल पे
6 शेड्यूल के बारे में डिस्कशन हुई, 371 पे हुई, यूटी लेजिस्लेचर पे हुई। यूटी लेजिस्लेचर में अगर हमारा फाइनेंशियल रेवेन्यू बजट कैपिटल बजट हर चीज़ पे हुआ और यूटी एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन की तरफ से भी कई जो उनकी तरफ से कई सजेशन आए। तो अभी कोई डिसीजन पे नहीं है, नेक्स्ट मीटिंग होगी। तो मुझे लगता है कि एक तरीके से जो है अब किसी कंक्लूजन की ओर बढ़ने का एक मुझे लगता है कि एक वो चल रहा है। बहुत जल्दी नेक्स्ट मीटिंग होगी तो उस समय जो भी सामने आएंगे उसके बाद हाई पावर कमेटी में कोई ना कोई डिसीजन हो जाएगा।
Joining us here on the broadcast, Suhas Chakma, Director, Rights and Risks Analysis Group, and Professor Prasenjit Biswas, Professor of Philosophy, Northeastern Hill University. Very warm welcome for taking out, and many thanks for taking out the time, gentlemen. Mr. Chakma, you see, the latest talks between the centre and the KDA, the Leh Apex Body, the Ladakhi groups, they're being described as a breakthrough, especially around the representative administration on Article 371, like safeguards. From a rights and from a governance perspective, how significant is this moment for Ladakh post-2019 now?
I think this is very significant because of the fact that for the first time, I think the Ladakhis are going to be the rulers themselves, because at this point of time, even though it's a union territory, it is being ruled by the lieutenant governor, or the governor who is appointed by the center directly. But the moment I think you bring in the elements where the Ladakhis would be nominating their own representatives in the council, I think it gives the power to the Ladakhis. And I think it's very significant. This is possibly the only way out, because if you look at the government of India, not only today, from the beginning, the Union of India has been reluctant to extend sixth schedule outside of the Northeast. So it's not the current government. I think historically they have not allowed that, the sixth schedule outside the uh, northeastern region. And at the same point in time, I think, we have to bear in mind that the conditions which we are put by the Union of India, that unless they are able to generate resources to finance themselves for having a state, I think that's something which is not going to be feasible in the near future because of the number of population and the kind of taxation system which they have. I don't think in that sense Ladakh is self-sustaining, or possibly a number of states in the Northeast equally are in that situation. But I would say I think this is a good breakthrough, and to bring the parties into the negotiating table and basically find a way out. I think it's a significant breakthrough.
Right. All right. Professor Biswas, you see, since 2019, Ladakh has existed as a union territory since the Legislative Assembly. The current demands, they've always reflected desires, not merely for governance. We're talking about dignity, we're talking about political agency. And when, we're talking about Ladakh and these Ladakhi civil society groups, words like representation and identity, they're powerful, but belonging is equally powerful. Philosophically, sir, what does belonging mean for a region that feels politically administered but not fully understood or completely represented?
It's a great question. In fact, when Sonam Wangchuk was arrested,
Yeah.
he was just prior to the arrest, he was making certain affirmations. And these affirmations included specific cultural rights of the Ladakhi people. Ladakh inhabited by several tribes, each of which have their distinctive cultural identity, cultural practices, their own languages, some of which are endangered as well. So all these languages and cultural issues have been very prominent in any democratic agitation that has happened in Ladakh since 2019. So you can see people are raising the issues of identity. They're raising the issues of their cultural specificity. Now, what is the best way to safeguard all of this? We must have a constitutional framework, Article 23, which is part of the Part 3 of the Constitution, fundamental rights to culture, religion, to spirituality, to faith, to conscience, and its institutional safeguard, which is very, very important in the Constitution. That needs to be worked out in the case of Ladakh. The second important thing is union territory with a legislature, which will grant them full right to have their own political authority.
Yep.
So that they don't feel that they're politically ruled from elsewhere. So the political rule and the cultural safeguard must come together at this point of time. And Article 371 can certainly be extended to accomplish this kind of a purpose. Therefore, there's a huge progress, I would say, towards giving these kind of rights to all kinds of minority people, for which Ladakh will stand as an example. Yeah, Karthik.
You see, Professor, you spoke about Article 371 and that expansion and all those permutation and combinations, but that for that legislative assembly to come into action, the Ministry of Home Affairs says, well, hey, look, you've got to generate employment. So, Mr. Chakma, how big of a battle will that now be? Because this train was stationary, this bandwagon wasn't really moving. It's finally moved after Wangchuk was released from, incarceration, March 14th. It has taken some steps. Whether this is the right direction or not, only time will tell. Whether this is a well-packaged experiment, only time will tell. But the train has certainly moved on. What are some of the challenges now when we're talking about generating employment, when we're talking about generating revenue, which are some of those, factors and prerequisites that the MHA wants to take off?
I think these requisites for generating resources, finances, etc., that will apply only if Ladakh seeks some kind of a statehood. And I think what the central government has agreed at this point of time is that they are going to have some kind of a model under Article 371 where it will be a union territory. So if it's a union territory, in all sense, it's at the end of the day ruled by the central government directly. So for creating union territory with a legislature, it doesn't require any kind of precondition for generating resources, etc. If I stood or if I understood correctly, I mean, what the central government has said that if you want a statehood, which is one of their demands, then the case, for the salaries, etc., of the staff or the employees of the state, you have to generate resources. But when it is a union territory, then it is the central government which will be ruling, and in that case, central government shall be financing everything. So there is no, question of Ladakh being forced to generate the resources. And this is something I don't think which will require any kind of, study or anything. It's just that the particular uh, legal framework which will be inserted in Article 371, that is something which has to be drafted and agreed to.
Okay. Okay. All right. My final question to you, Professor Biswas. You see, it's going to be a two-pronged question here, Professor. First and foremost, you see, whenever there are two political viewpoints at loggerheads and things, look like they're moving some way, a breakthrough, quote unquote, in this situation, there is some sort of a compromise. Somebody has to pay heed, bow down, take a kneel, and maybe that's for the greater good. So, what, according to you, is the side that has compromised a little bit? For example, the sixth schedule, that stance has been softened by the Ladakhi bodies. And secondly, you see, Leh and Kargil, they have their own regional aspirations. Then when the government wants to balance out national interests and regional aspirations, that's a delicate balancing act in its own self. Leh and Kargil, both these sides with different political social concerns and regional aspirations, yet have come together through the Leh Apex body and the Kargil Democratic Alliance. How important is this unity as well for this entire movement to be as, strong as it is at the moment?
Yes, you are very right that Leh peoples and Kargil people have to come together and they have to stand together for having whatever new political arrangements are proposed. And in the process, they had a wide-ranging discussion that Leh area requires economic support from the Kargil area, and that Kargil area requires the cultural support from the Leh area. So they have established a very strong solidarity to the satisfaction of everyone, those of us who wanted to see that their cause is successful. So at this moment, they are striding ahead with this kind of a unity. And what is going to happen in the next few months or maybe in 1 year time is a concrete framing of their aspirations in terms of their autonomy, in terms of their hold over their resources, hold over their river, hold over their mines, hold over the height in which, there are many more resources available. So this is something very, very prospective for Ladakh, and the entire process needs to be carried out through a due process of negotiation. And if that is successful, then all these issues about resource generation and holding of resources and having autonomy over those resources can all be sorted out. And this is how I see that it is making a great difference at this moment, which is opening up towards a new future.
That good sense prevails. Mr. Chakma, I'm not going to let you go before I ask you what's your assessment of what side compromised a little bit more, maybe for their own selfish gains, maybe for the greater good, but there has to be some compromise from some side. Otherwise, this train wasn't leaving the station.
I think both sides compromised. If you look at the Ladakhis and the people from Kargil, they have given up the idea of having sixth schedule as well as or the full statehood status. They had to give up on that. And for the Union of India, they had to give up the control or the absolute control over the administration there, because at this point in time, from 2019, the region was being run through a governor who is actually the central government's representative. So the moment you allow the elected representative to have a say, the central government also has basically ceded the powers to the people of the region. So you could say that both sides, but the Union of India as well as the Ladakhis and the people from Kargil, they had to give in. I mean, so that's why I think they could reach the compromise on.
Right? Ladakh's demand today is not just about powers or protections, it's about representation, identity, and like we've been talking about, the philosophy of belonging, outright. The outcome of these talks, which people are saying is a breakthrough, could very well redefine the relationship between India's frontier regions and the Union and the idea of it all. And like both my panelists have been mentioning, this is a great step. It is the right direction, and let's hope that good sense prevails. Mr. Chakma, always a pleasure to have you with us here. And Professor Biswas, many thanks for taking out the time speaking to us here on News 9.